My name is Carleen Pickard. I work as what's called the ethical campaigner at Lush Cosmetics for North America, so in Canada and the United States. Lush is a soap and bath and body care company that was founded in the UK, but I work sort of solely in North America. Well, we were invited to come and talk to the Congress this year because in 2017, for Lush in North America, we ran a campaign in our retail stores and digitally online calling for the abolition of the death penalty in the United States. And I think it's a unique, well, sadly, a unique example of how the private sector has been involved in calling for the abolition of the death penalty. So the Congress wanted to invite us to talk about it, really with the hopes that we can inspire both activists and organizations working towards abolition and also more companies to work together and develop messaging that I think for our campaign was really effective and really move the whole global abolition movement forward. So for the business, once we learned about the death penalty, once we sat with organizations that really helped educate us on all the flaws and failures, we sort of instantly felt almost implicated as a business not doing anything. Felt that it became our obligation to share what we had learned and do it in a really public way that we could talk to our millions of customers and tell them why we think that abolition, specifically in the United States, but starting in the United States, is really important. So campaigns for us, you know, when it's between Valentine's Day or Mother's Day, or, you know, we're sort of not talking about some sort of holiday, show up in the stores in terms of the windows. So we had signs in the windows that said death is not justice. We had organizations that we were partnering with really featured and highlighted. But the real power is in our 8,500 staff who were all trained on what we believed were the effective talking points. And every day for 10 days, they had conversation with almost every person that came through the doors to talk about why we wanted them to also get involved in abolition. I mean, you know, it was an interesting time. It was 2017 in the spring, the United States, so Trump had just become president. When we first started talking about the campaign, it was at a time when, you know, it felt like there was a lot of positive momentum in the US. The number of sentences or sentencing to death row had been on a downward decline. The number of executions was totally at an all-time low. And public opinion in favor of abolition was at an all-time high. So we thought at the time, this is great to throw in a corporate voice and, you know, really back the movement and push things forward to make things, you know, in the hopes that things would be in a stronger place when we sort of finished the public part of the campaign. But then, you know, when Trump was elected, it became sort of all the more pressing and obvious to us that we needed to at least maintain that momentum where it was. So I think we thought, you know, we didn't know what public opinion was going to be like. We certainly recognized it was like a tough issue to talk about with people, especially for people who came in and thought, oh, I'm going to buy my shampoo for, you know, the month. And so, I mean, we feel incredibly proud of the work that we did. And people who came in, you know, buying soap or shampoo were talked to about why, you know, the death penalty does not make our communities safer, why it does not address the root cause of crime, and how it's not applied fairly across the United States as a, you know, form of justice. People, you know, they had some tough conversations on shop floors, but overwhelmingly our response from our staff, or the feedback that I know exists out there, was that it was really transformative. So on one hand, transformative for our staff, who maybe, much like myself initially, didn't think that the death penalty was something that really touched them, or didn't think that it was something you needed to take a stand on. I personally had always thought, well, there's these amazing organizations, there's these really smart lawyers, there's, you know, true people of faith who are working on that issue. I don't need to get involved. And then, you know, became an abolitionist myself, so being able to transform our staff to feel empowered that way, and then for them to be able to talk to customers is, you know, something I think some of the issues we've worked on, this one has actually had the most impact and the most change. I firmly believe that we're a stronger company as a result. I think on one hand, sort of having those internal conversations and lifting everybody up to a place where people really understood why the business was taking a stand, and then them being encouraged, or them being themselves, like their journey where they would take a stand as well. Our public facing opinion, I mean, every campaign we have people, every issue that we take a stand on, we have people say, oh, I'm never shopping there again. So this one was no different, but I know firmly and strongly that being able to open up the business to all the people who work on abolition is a giant, you know, I mean, in corporate terms, it's like a giant new market that maybe people didn't think about. Oh, Lush is an ally to us on this. So, you know, the business case for me was clear in terms of, or the results in terms of the business case, and that's what I, you know, hope that other companies would want to learn from and would want to talk to us about, is that we're a stronger business as a result, I believe, of doing that campaign, and we are and will go down as firmly on the right side of history on this issue. I think it's important to know that on one hand, the death penalty touches everybody. We had so many staff and so many customers who, during that campaign, came forward and talked about whatever part of the death penalty had actually touched their lives. So it's much more there than I think most people who don't think about the death penalty even recognize or understand. So it is actually an issue that matters. And that you don't have to be a business that is somehow directly connected to the death penalty to take a stand on the issue. There's certainly an incredible movement that happened and is, you know, is bearing results of companies that were targeted for their complicity directly in the death penalty. But that public outreach part and the public education part and the momentum building part is so important. So if you're a business that has that kind of constituency that will listen to you as a brand because you've built that relationship with your customers, there's no harm. It's only beneficial, I believe, to take a stand on the death penalty and to be an agent of change and to be a brand that's going to be, that is supportive on the issue. I think one of the interesting things about being in Europe is I think the conversation around kind of purpose of brands is less. In North America, it's sort of all we talk about, like what brand's purpose is, and we talk about, you know, what customers want to see in their brands and loyalty and whatnot. There's less of that, I think, in Europe, which is possibly a good thing. But for North America and brands in North America, people, you know, studies show that people want to shop at places that share their values. And if we can be a brand that does that, I have no doubt that other brands can as well. And that it again, only made us a stronger company in the end. You know, increasingly there is an interest in getting the private sector involved in all sorts of social justice issues. And for organizations or individuals that have been suspect of corporations in the past, I think that's a valid concern, but there are companies, you know, that are like Lush, and there are other companies that forming that personal connection with, or talking to about, you know, issues like the death penalty that we care about so deeply does actually have an impact, and you cannot know what opportunity might exist. So I think it's worth organizations and activists specifically on the death penalty, kind of taking the time to think through like where might some strategic allies be, because I know what we heard consistently when we were doing our research from the organizations in the United States is that there wasn't, you know, you have these long lists of like all the organizations that are calling for abolition, you know, individuals or celebrities or those kind of people, but when you come to the corporation kind of line, there's not a lot. You know, at the time it was kind of Virgin and Richard Branson were the folks that were there, and that what they told us is having a new ally would actually help the movement in the long run. And so I think putting some thought to that and thinking, if, you know, at this point in time, because both civil society engagement, organization engagement around the death penalty is quite strong and quite, you know, quite impactful, that if what we need is more allies on side, that there are folks in business who, you know, I believe will be willing to have the conversation. And again, we don't know like where all those opportunities are. So I think it's worth taking that leap and seeing if we can't get other companies on board. I know that's certainly what I spend my time doing now, because I think it can't just be us. There have to be more to help build up the movement that you know, we just need to get there.